Since 1961, the U.S. Air Force had been conducting Operation Chrome Dome, a mission built on a chilling premise. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, nuclear-armed bombers were to remain in the air without interruption. The idea was simple and terrifying. If the Soviet Union launched a surprise attack and destroyed American bases, these bombers would survive, ensuring guaranteed retaliation. On the morning of January 21, 1968, one of those bombers took off for another routine patrol. A massive B-52 Stratofortress carrying 4 hydrogen bombs, each with a yield of over 1 million tons of TNT. Every single bomb, 70 times more powerful than Little Boy, the weapon that obliterated Hiroshima in August 1945. On that fateful day, a fire broke out aboard the bomber. Flames spread rapidly through the cabin, filling it with smoke and chaos. The crew had no choice. They were forced to abandon the aircraft mid-flight. Moments later, the massive B-52 plunged from the sky, crashing near Thule Air Base in Greenland. Upon hitting the ice, the bomber disintegrated, and its deadly cargo was torn apart by the explosion, scattering radioactive contamination across the frozen wasteland. In 1995, a portion of the documents related to the incident was declassified and made public. For the first time, the world learned the full scope of what had happened. Then in March 2009, Time magazine listed the Thule crash as one of the most serious nuclear accidents in history. But the revelations didn't stop there. Years later, reports began to surface claiming that during the cleanup and recovery operations, only 3 of the 4 hydrogen bombs were ever found. The fate of a 4th thermonuclear weapon remains a mystery to this day. Captain John Hope commanded the bomber. Aboard, besides the 5 regular crew members, were a relief navigator and a spare pilot, Major DeMario. Before takeoff, the spare pilot had tucked 4 foam cushions over a heating vent opening beneath the seat. During the flight, the captain ordered the second pilot to take a rest and had Major DeMario take his place. Because the cockpit was cold, DeMario opened the valve that drew air from the engine duct into the heating system. Due to a technical fault, the hot engine air was not properly cooled on its way into the heater. The cockpit quickly became unbearably hot, and the foam cushions beneath the seat caught fire. Attempts to extinguish the blaze with 2 fire extinguishers failed. Captain Hope transmitted a distress signal and requested permission for an emergency landing. Within 5 minutes, the electrical supply failed and the cockpit filled with smoke so thick the pilots could no longer read their instruments. The captain ordered the crew to eject. All survived the ejection except the second pilot, Leonardo Sviatenko, who suffered a fatal head injury. The unmanned bomber flew a short distance and then slammed onto the ice of North Star Bay, roughly 11 kilometers from the base runway. The impact was so violent that the Arctic ice of Baffin Bay melted at the epicenter. The uranium core of one of the bombs fell through the opening and sank into the sea. Other fragments plunged into the water. The surrounding area was heavily contaminated by spilled fuel, and the inner components of the warheads, uranium, americium, tritium, and plutonium. The precise amount of plutonium remains classified, but modern estimates place the quantity dispersed by the explosion at about 7.5 kilograms. Fortunately, the safety mechanisms prevented a thermonuclear reaction. However, each warhead also contained conventional explosives. These detonated on impact, tearing the devices apart and scattering radioactive material across a vast area. American and Danish teams immediately began round-the-clock decontamination work, a race against the spring thaw. They had to finish before the ice melted or the radioactive contamination would sweep into the ocean. A camp was set up beside the crash site with its own power plant and helipad. Crews worked in brutal Arctic extremes. Temperatures plunged to minus 60 degrees Celsius, winds exceeded 40 meters per second, and hurricane-force gusts hurled contaminated snow and ice for hundreds of kilometers. Dosimeters failed. Protective suits and respirators froze solid. The safety of the men on the ground was in constant peril. Using graders, crews scraped away the top layers of snow and ice, shoveling the radioactive slurry into wooden crates. Those crates were then transferred into steel tanks and shipped by sea to the United States, The radioactive waste ultimately bound for the nuclear burial site at Savannah River, South Carolina. After the cleanup, the area was covered with sand to speed the melting of any remaining snow and ringed with barriers bearing warning signs in several languages. But decontaminating the surface was only half the mission. The other equally urgent task was to locate the thermonuclear weapons and their scattered fragments that had been aboard the bomber. In August 1968, an underwater search was launched, a desperate hunt for the remnants of the hydrogen bombs using the manned submersible Star 3. The true purpose of the operation was classified. Official instructions ordered that in talks with the Danes, the mission be described only as a routine seabed survey at the crash site. But the veil of secrecy could not hide the truth forever. A report from the Danish Institute of International Relations, published in 2009, identified the most likely target of the dive, the uranium core of one of the warheads. And in a document from the Atomic Energy Commission dated September 1968, investigators noted that the fourth core was presumed to lie buried in a massive heavy wreckage discovered on the ocean floor. Around 200 Danish cleanup workers repeatedly demanded compensation, claiming that their participation in the Thule cleanup had severely affected their health. Together with their American counterparts, they searched for contaminated debris, loaded radioactive material onto ships, and maintained equipment at the crash site. In 1987, a group of Danish workers even filed a lawsuit against the US government, but the case led nowhere. Yet during the proceedings, several documents concerning the Thule disaster were declassified. From these, it became clear that no regular health monitoring had ever been conducted for the American personnel after the operation. Systematic checks began only after these facts surfaced in 1995. That same year, the Danish Prime Minister ordered a medical examination of the surviving cleanup participants. The study conducted by the Danish Institute of revealed alarming results. The mortality rate from cancer among the workers was 50% higher than the national average. Out of roughly 1,500 Danish cleanup, 500 had died of cancer. From the American side, no comparable data has ever been released. Even today, most official documents about the Thule incident, and especially about the extent of radioactive contamination, remain classified as restricted information. In November 2008, BBC security correspondent Gordon Carrera published a series of investigative articles devoted to the Thule disaster. Drawing on newly declassified documents, he reached a striking conclusion. Contrary to the Pentagon's long-standing claims, the fourth thermonuclear bomb was not destroyed, it was lost. According to Carrera's findings, the true purpose of the 1968 underwater operation was to locate that missing weapon. But the search failed, and so decades later, the fate of the fourth hydrogen bomb and the secrets buried beneath the Arctic ice remain unknown.